Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Burn with Mitch on 12 Ounce Sports. Happy to be here once again on a Tuesday, January the 18th, 2022. How's everybody doing? As we go through and continue to deal with this crazy pandemic, did you order your COVID test today? You can get them from the government. The website is up. I thought it was going to be up tomorrow. My daughter texted me and said, you can get your tests. So I did. Why not? They're free. Might come in handy. I haven't gotten it yet. I hope those of you who have are feeling well. Let's hope those of us who don't and haven't gotten it yet do not. It almost seems like it's inevitable, though, with this thing. So we'll see what happens. Glad you're with me here tonight on the Burn with Mitch on 12 Ounce Sports Network. Got a really good show tonight. I always say that, and I always do, because I have great guests. It's just amazing. They keep coming up, and it's awesome. So I appreciate all of them coming on. I'll tell you about them in just a minute. But first, let me do a shout out first. If you have heard of the name Mabel Blair, Mabel just turned 95. Mabel is a former member of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. The film A League of Their Own was based on this league, as you know. She played for the Peoria team, and she turned 95 this past week. And God bless her, she's still throwing the ball around. And she's trying to get this facility built in Rockford, Illinois, that will provide, I think it's a museum and an area where girls and women can play baseball complex. So I'm giving her a shout out because she's 95 and she's still out there and she's throwing the ball around. And one of the things I can't wait to do, hopefully, is meet her and throw the ball around with her. That is a bucket list item of mine. So that's a shout out to Mabel. I'm going to do a shout down based on what I saw and heard this past weekend in NFL football. First of all, my shout down is to those of you who know I don't like Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the Sidney Crosby of the NHL. Sidney Crosby, if anybody touches him, if anybody goes near him, if anybody trips him, if he doesn't like a penalty call, he goes and complains to the referees. I've seen Sidney do it too much, and I don't like it because that tells me that it's all about him when he gets roughed up. Not about the team, it's about him. You see Tom Brady this past weekend? Yeah, he's the GOAT. Yeah, he's the greatest. I get it. I'm still going to give him crap for not shaking Nick Foles' hand after the Super Bowl. And I'm still going to give him crap for continuing to complain to the referees when it gets pushed. Oh, the poor child can't handle getting pushed by a player? Come on, stop it. Some people say, oh, he's the GOAT. He can do whatever he wants. I say BS to that. And then my other shout down, the Dallas Cowgirls. And the fact that they lost in the first round of the playoffs again. It's to two people specifically that I'm talking about. One, Dak Prescott, who, when told that the fans were not throwing their bottles and crap out of the stands onto the field towards the players, that told what wasn't towards the players, it was towards the ref. He says, oh, good on them. Really? You're going to condone your fans throwing crap on the field? What happens if one of your players gets hurt? Really? It's okay for people to throw crap on the field? That's number one. Number two, Mike McCarthy, for that BS excuse about running that play and blaming the referees, the officials, for not getting the ball to the line of scrimmage on time. BS. BS, BS. Take the loss. You screwed up again. What an idiotic call you made to let this guy run with 14 seconds to go. And hey, if I was the other team, I would have made him run and not even make it a choice. I would have just sat back and just let him run around the field, take up the 14 seconds, and then you can't blame the officials for not touching the ball before they have to do that before they put the ball and get it ready for play. Stop blaming the officials. You lost because your teams stink in the playoffs. Mike McCarthy, you stink as a coach. Anyway, that's my rant. So let's talk about my guests this evening. They are as follows. I'm hoping to get Josh Tolentino. I'm going to text him something. He may be calling in a few minutes. Josh is, I think, Philadelphia Eagles reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Can't get any bigger than that in Philadelphia. He's a host for Game Day Central on Xfinity Live, and he's well known in the Philadelphia area and as a reporter for the Philadelphia Eagles. So he'll either be coming on here where we can see him, or he'll be calling me in just a few minutes to talk about the Eagles this past weekend. At 7:05, Real Captain Lou from 12 Ounce Sports from the Captain Lou Extravaganza. He'll be coming on. We're going to be talking the NFL playoffs. Any surprises? I have one. I'm going to see if he knows who I'm going to see who his is. And I have one surprise, the way they played. Okay, not that they won or lost, but the way this person played. At number 3, waiting in the wings, author Harold Plews. Harold wrote a book. The book is called Baseball Hall of Fame's Forgotten 9. He goes in detail talking about these 9 players. They are as follows. And now it's basically Harold's. We talked a little bit before the show. Didn't mention that we don't have to talk about the 3 that are on the cover here. Minnie Minoso, Antonio Oliva, and Gil Hodges. They got in. But we're going to talk about Veda Pinson, who has amazing statistics. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Maury Wills, maybe. Jim Gilliam, maybe. Bill Freehan, catcher for the Tigers. Possibility. Ken Boyer, Cardinals third baseman. And one we know, Mark Carfagno is probably, hopefully listening, Dick Allen. So we're going to talk to Harold about these players in this book. He goes into a lot of detail, number-wise, metrics-wise, about comparisons. And these players, played in the 50s and 60s. So it'll be an interesting discussion about whether or not these guys who are now still not in deserve to come in. So that's our show for the evening, and I'm going to ask each of my guests if they have, of course, a burn. What burns you? What bothers you in the world of sports? Football, baseball, hockey. What bothers you in life? Is there something in life that really bugs the crap out of you? I'm taking a list, and I'm going to compile it, and we're going to put it out there at some point. And, 99% of my guests have given me a burn. One said he had no burn. I said baseball. I should have said life. If it wasn't baseball, life, he has no burn about baseball. But I didn't ask him about life. So there are several things in life that bother me. Some of it is the bad parts of social media. But those are the kinds of things you have to kind of ignore. The other burn I have is that when the men in the world really degrade the women in the sports world, putting them down for saying that really they don't know, in essence, what they're talking about, and which is totally wrong in many respects. So those are my burns. So we're going to talk Eagles first from Josh. He'll either be calling me or coming on here. We'll see what happens. Eagles did get beat. I don't know that anybody expected them to win the game. Big controversy, as usual in Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts, is he the quarterback? Get rid of him. He's no good. Did you see his passing? Did you see how he doesn't have an arm? Bad decisions. Yes, bad decisions. My take, any job you get, and unfortunately for me, I've had, you think you're going to stay in one job most of your life? I've had a bunch. It's hard to start over. You have a boss that, and I think Josh is calling right now. We'll talk to Josh right now. Hello, is this Josh?
Hey, Mitch, it's Josh. How are you doing?
Josh, I'm doing terrific. How are you?
I'm doing great. Sorry I wasn't able to be at my office, but happy to definitely hop on and talk some Eagles.
Yeah, I just started the conversation, Josh. Let's start with Jalen Hurts and what you're hearing and what I see and read on Twitter about Jalen Hurts is or isn't the quarterback for next year. I was just going to make a comparison and talk to folks about, when you get a new job, you're starting over. And especially when the boss is new, you got to come to an agreement. You got to come to understanding. You got to come to together to foster a relationship that is going towards a common goal. It doesn't necessarily happen in the course, especially in the course of a football season, does it?
No, certainly. And Jalen Hurts is such a hot topic around town. And I think I might be one of the only ones here who firmly believe that he deserves or that he's earned the right to be the starter for another year. And in my case of looking at that, you look at the body of work, Mitch, and I know, the Eagles, they found their way into the playoffs. They had a weak back-end schedule. But Jalen Hurts, I mean, he do we know what his ceiling is yet? No. But, we have seen some limitations as a passer, but we've also seen some progressions and maturity of his pocket awareness and appearance. And, I guess I'll start the conversation like this, but I've heard from multiple people across the league and, pretty high positions, from scouts to all the way to a couple people in some front offices. And the consensus is that if, the Eagles were to move on from Jalen Hurts, he would get scooped up pretty quickly. So I think he just offers way too much from the dynamic of him being a dual threat. Obviously, recorded 10 touchdowns this year, which broke Michael Vick's franchise record. And to be honest, Mitch, he would have scored even more, if he didn't get some torn ligaments in his ankle in the last month of the season, and that really limited his mobility. The offense definitely changed there. I don't think yesterday, or actually Sunday now, was a good representation of the Eagles' offense because Jalen Hurts was so limited. And not just that, you mentioned first-year coach, first year kind of on the job. It wasn't just Jalen Hurts being a first-year starter for the Eagles, but first-year play caller Nick Sirianni and offensive coordinator with Shane Steichen. So a lot of different moving pieces. If he, has a veteran coach, maybe a different play caller might be able to mask some of his struggles throughout the game. But this is what the situation was. But in my opinion, I think Jalen Hurts was going to be the starter come week 1 of the 2022 regular season. I think he's earned that shot.
Yeah, and I do too. And it's just so funny to listen to and read Eagles fans' obsession with trying to beat down and place blame. Listen, at the beginning of the year, you just said it too. And end of the year was the easier schedule. I predicted from the beginning 10-7 or 9-8. Only because I looked at the end of the schedule and thinking that they would get better and progress, like you said, and they did. But really, nobody was expecting this team to get to the playoffs. It's not like the Phillies where we're waiting for them to get to the playoffs. When is that going to happen next? And there are too many pieces there too. But I also think there is an issue. What did you think of the defense all year, Josh? I thought it was horrendous for the secondary.
Yeah, it's funny because their defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, he actually has 3 interviews for head coaching positions this week. He had one with the Texans today. Tomorrow he has one with the Broncos, and on Thursday he has one with the Vikings. So 3 straight interviews with him now that the Eagles are out. And it wouldn't surprise me if he landed one of those gigs. And we discussed the defense and their struggles. Certainly. And basically, I guess what I want to focus on here in a conversation about Jonathan Gannon is that he basically came into Philadelphia and changed everything. It's kind of what you expect with a coaching change, a coordinator change. But at the beginning of the season, Mitch, he was asking players who have done things for the same way for such a long time, and basically was asking them to fill different roles, whether it be Fletcher Cox, and changing up his technique in regards to, where he was lining up across the defensive line, taking him out of his comfort zone, even honestly having him play, some zone read, getting out in the curl flat, having him play the screen game or defend the screen game. That is not what Fletcher Cox is built to do. And I think the Las Vegas game after that loss, when the team was 2-5, Fletcher Cox straight up said that I'm not paid to defend screens. I'm paid to sack the quarterback. And if you look at the numbers, this was basically a career worst year for Fletcher Cox because of those changes. And obviously some of that is with where he's at in his career and age, but he's still I think he can still be a dominant player when he's used right. Another example, Darius Leigh, who actually fought those struggles of playing in different spots, but he was asked to play a lot of zone, which goes against what he's been so good at throughout his career, dating back to Detroit. Darius Leigh, he had an all-pro type year, named to his 4th Pro Bowl after being asked to play zone. And he's such a man-type corner. He's used to following top receivers. And at first, he wasn't allowed to do those type of things. But mid-season, things progressed. He adjusted to his personnel. They improved in some statistical areas. But, yes, the defense was certainly up and down. That would be a fair assessment, I'd say, of this unit.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, I know a lot of people, including me, are waiting for Gannon, say bye-bye. But, that doesn't really mean anything when you have somebody new coming in. And what's that going to do? What is that relationship, Josh? So you bring a new defensive coordinator on, and who hires him? Is Sirianni there? Is it the GM? I mean, who's doing this now? And are they going to change any philosophy? And if and it depends upon who's hiring him. So tell me the details on that. How does that work?
In regards to, I'm sorry, Mitch, I just got off track for a second. In regards to who's making decisions with the defense or the offense?
The defensive coordinator position now, if he gets that job.
Oh, certainly. I think that a lot goes through. It's Nick's decision. Nick was the one who brought him here.
Yep. Okay.
From Indianapolis. Obviously, Howie and Jeff Lurie, who has been hands-on at times with the organization, will have their say and input throughout the interview process. But from what we've learned this year, Nick Sirianni, a lot of the personnel for one has to improve. It doesn't matter who the coordinator is. I think they have issues across the pass rush and linebacker and even back in the secondary. Yeah. They certainly have to address that in the offseason. But when it comes to coordinator selection, I think Nick Sirianni is going to go and get this guy.
All right. And is there any way that they get somebody who, I mean, this is all going to depend upon personnel too, that they can throw more blitzes out there?
Yes. The Eagles, they finished second least blitz percentage in the league. I think the second fewest sacks in the league, and it showed. Coincidentally, and again, Tampa's offensive line was banged up, down Ryan Jensen and Tristan Wirfs in the NFC Championship game. Coincidentally, the Eagles had 4 sacks in that game, but that was not an accurate representation of, what they did all season. So, some of that Jonathan Gannon has switched up with exotic pressures and different looks. Yesterday, he had Fletcher Cox line up in the middle linebacker position before the snap, before he eventually, moved up closer to the line. That was something we had never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Trying some different things, but he's too reliant. What we learned is that Jonathan Gannon is way too reliant on just traditional four-man rushes with no additional blitz. So he depended way more on that. So we'll see if Jonathan Gannon is back next year. Obviously his name is hot right now. 3 interviews for head coaching positions, and it's a testament to who he is as the character. And I'll be one of the first to tell you is that he's the most energetic guy in the building, and that is indeed felt amongst the players and the staff. So, really in every single interaction we've had with him, even when the team was 2-5, 2-4,
Mm-hmm.
He was bringing the energy every day, even to his weekly press conferences with the media. He'd be one of the happiest persons in the room, the most energetic guy, again, for sure. It felt like, he had 10 cups of coffee or something before, but that's just, what he brings to the room. And I think that's, a testament to why he's getting those interviews.
Okay, so before we get to the position players, Sirianni, a down first 6-7 games in terms of play calling, and then boom, the best running offense in the league. What happened on Saturday though? On Sunday?
Yeah, certainly. You look at the first 2 drives, and the Buccaneers, they stacked the box. And even in instances when teams have stacked the box with 8-9 players in past games, the Eagles had a historic stretch of games, Mitch, where they ran 180 plus yards. I think it was in 7 or 8 straight games,
Mm-hmm.
and no team had done that since the '85 Bears. That is some pretty elite
company. It really is. Yeah.
Yes, to be in regards to running the ball, especially in today's NFL when there's so much made of passing the ball, and that's the way many teams survive. The Eagles went against the grain and went back to a more traditional offensive running the ball, and it worked for so long. It's what got them to the playoffs. And you look at the play calling. I mean, the Eagles didn't shy from that. They tried to run the ball, and they just couldn't against this credit to Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator there in Tampa. He figured out the Eagles, and more so, he figured out Jalen Hurts. You look at a lot of the zone reads that Jalen Hurts had. And then again, we have to remember that Jalen Hurts had a hobbled ankle after the game. He was in a walking boot.
Right.
Definitely, it was reported that he had some torn ligaments in his ankle and was playing on that. So again, his mobility is already hindered. But the way that Todd Bowles defended him was basically blitzing from the right side, which would be, the left side of the defense, and basically playing contain on the other side and daring Jalen to either throw or run to his left. And we saw so many instances. There was this tipped interception, specifically that I'm remembering, when he was running to his left and he tried to throw across his body. And then the interception in the end zone when he was trying to hit Devontae Smith through the pass late, that was also throwing across his body on the left side. His more comfortable side is on that right side.
Sure.
So just the way that the Bucs defense played the Eagles, they definitely figured out the running game, and they figured out Jalen. And not just that, credit to Tom Brady. He jumped out to a really early lead. I think in their first 3 possessions, they scored 2 touchdowns. So, when you're down 2 scores, you're not really trying to run the ball. You're playing catch up.
Yeah, it's tough to get in that situation, especially against crybaby Brady. Let's talk about the skill positions. And I everybody, including me, Jalen Reagor, man, I think I read today it's only a $10 million cap hit. He needs to go. What are your thoughts on him specifically?
Yeah, certainly. I think for both sides, I think they just need a fresh start. I think 2 years is enough of a sample size for their top pick from last year to see that he's not a fit here. And we've seen Nick Sirianni. He got here and he tried to do some different things in regards to getting Jalen Reagor more involved, whether it be, gadget type plays with end arounds or wide receiver screens, playing him in the backfield. obviously in punt return. And we saw yesterday that the moment was just too big for him, or Sunday, excuse me. And he just wasn't able to come through in those big moments. Not just come through, but field the ball properly. Like, I mean, you look at the I think it was in the third quarter when the Eagles had a chance. They stopped Tom Brady early. They forced a punt.
Yep.
Jalen Reagor just muffed a punt, and not just that, he forgot to field or call the fair catch.
Yeah.
That's just common football IQ, especially where you see the balls landing, the direction of the ball, where you're at on the field. You're not trying to run it at the 50-yard line. I mean, that's already great field position. Just field the ball properly. Failed to do that, and but one thing is that you have to look at Howie Roseman and how he views the situation. The general manager, obviously, he made the pick. He wants it to pan out. It hasn't so far. How far is his patient level with it? And not just that, they got Devontae Smith, who has been excellent.
Yep.
And I think one of the best playmakers on the team. Devontae has masked that mistake. But again, if you move on from Jalen Reagor, another guy, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, another receiver who hasn't panned out, well, then that creates more holes at the wide receiver spot that, you'd have to fill in the offseason. So I think it's all how Howie Roseman views it. And I think defense is a little bit more of a priority right now. Maybe they can address wide receiver in free agency.
Yeah.
When it comes to young players, I think they have to address the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there are a lot of holes, but and that's the thing. I've been on this team, and even the Phillies. I don't know what's goes on in Philadelphia. Talent evaluation is the worst on both of those teams. It's just absolutely horrendous. And with the draft picks, and you go down the line, especially with the Eagles, because you as you know, you are really banking on in football these draft picks. Baseball, it's come or go. That's a harder slot. But people recognize when you're no good for year after year after year, and your first round pick doesn't pan out. You got Devontae. To me, Jalen's got to go. Quez is another possibility, I'm sure. Greg Ward's still sticking around. So who do you think? Does Quez stick around next year? I'm going to think yes. But what about Greg Ward? And then we got to hit the running backs in the next 6 minutes.
Yeah, Greg Ward, I think he's actually a UFA. I think that he's someone they certainly intend to bring back. They use him in a variety of ways, from special teams to trick plays. He used to be a quarterback at the University of Houston. Quez Watkins surely is a pick that not a pick, but a receiver that I like, and I think that we saw a lot of progression from him, like opposite of Jalen Reagor, regression. We saw a lot of progression with Quez Watkins. He's one of the fastest players on the team, and I think he had around like 600 yards. That's pretty good for someone who's not targeted.
He did have that many.
Much
he had that many, huh?
Offense. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and don't even get me started on Devontae Smith. I think he should have eclipsed 1,000
yards
easily.
Yeah.
We saw in Week 18 against the Cowboys that they wanted to get Devontae Smith the rookie record to break Deshaun Jackson. He needed like 40-something yards, and then they got him out of the game. Well, what did they do? They threw him the ball, and they force-fed him. What did he do? He was able to catch the ball.
Yep.
So, I think in so many situations that we've seen the offense, whether it be Nick Sirianni or Jalen Hurts, not target Devontae Smith early or often enough. Just look at the Bucs game on Sunday. I don't think he got a target until there was a minute left in the first half. That's just inexcusable. He's your best player, and I know they've got Dallas Goedert, a tight end who they really like. But when in regards to Devontae Smith, it's inexcusable that he's not having more targets, especially early in games. And then again, that's something that they're figuring out, as they progress as an offense.
Yeah. Finally, we hit the running backs. I don't think we call him in our family. I don't know if this has ever caught on, but maybe you, Josh, in Philadelphia can do. We call him Sparky, Sparky Scott. It seems like whenever he gets the ball, he has a lot of positive yards. It's very rare when I've seen him lose yardage, as opposed to Miles Sanders. And Jordan Howard had a really good year too. So what do you think happens next year with this running back group?
Yeah, they certainly. Nick has said this multiple times throughout the year, but they have 4 running backs that they really like, and Jason Huntley, who's on the practice squad, he was another one.
He was.
You could throw in that group you saw in Week 18.
Yeah,
some explosive plays.
Absolutely.
Was certainly better than Jalen Reagor in any type of return game that we saw in Week 18. That when he was out there. But I think they like the group moving forward. I think they have to figure out the offensive line. Is Jason Kelsey coming back? I think he definitely proved at age 34, I believe, that he's got more football in him.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Brooks is another guy. You wonder what happens to his future. Missed the majority of the season, but so many good pieces across the offensive line. They've got depth. They've certainly got depth at running back. I think they continue to move forward with Miles Sanders, but I believe Miles is hitting the final year of his rookie contract.
Okay.
So that's certainly something to pay attention to. One of the most interesting stats that I've, it continues to baffle me is that he never found the end zone. Miles Sanders, he led the team, not necessarily led the team. Jalen Hurts led the team in rushing.
Right.
But Miles Sanders, he led the running backs in rushing. He had the highest average, over 5 yards a carry. I mean, that's tremendous production from your running back, but 0 touchdowns. Kenneth Gainwell, the rookie, he had 7 touchdowns. Boston Scott had 7. Jordan Howard had a few. So the end zone production came from the back 3 guys, while Miles Sanders, it was more about the yards per carry and not finding the end zone.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a – listen, you just mentioned the other three, they did score. And, it's almost like Sanders – it sounds like when you're talking, you're sounding like you're putting Miles Sanders in a setup role like before the closer, right? But, yeah, I mean, listen, this running back – I do, and I think a lot of people do like the running backs. It's just about now, like you said – and I think they had, like you said, depth on the offensive line. Not many injuries this year, but the whole team had new coaches. And I think if Sirianni and gets together, they hire their defensive coordinator, I don't know that they'll compete for a Super Bowl next year. But, it's so funny watching the Dallas Cowboys shrivel up and die in the first round of the playoffs. That tells you this team can compete, I think, for the division next year if they play their cards right.
Yeah, I think you look at personnel. I think Dallas is still certainly ahead of them, but no, like what you mentioned, the NFC East, it's always wide open there. So I think they have to close the competition gap for sure. But again, this was so unexpected from this team. So Eagles fans are greedy and they wanted them to move forward and move on in the playoffs, but I think they got to take what they can get, man. I mean, they certainly overexceeded my expectations. I remember many national outlets, they were picked to, 3-4 wins at best. It seemed like a majority of places had them finishing last. And Nick Sirianni, he was the only rookie head coach to make the playoffs. And not just that, you look at first-year quarterbacks who were in the postseason for the first time. Kyler Murray, Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Look at their teams got blown out as well. So
yes.
I think the future is bright here in Philadelphia, and the conversation around Jalen Hurts, and I know it's going to be a hot topic all throughout the offseason, but I've made my mind on that. He deserves another year.
Oh, absolutely. I really do. I mean, he's got talent. I mean, was his decision making great? No, especially on Sunday. But you know what? He's young. Let the kid play. Let him learn. Let him learn. Yes. Let him learn. Another year with Sirianni, another year with the offensive coordinator. Let him get healthy. Give the kid a chance. And, again, you got an offensive line. Again, if Kelsey does come back, I love what Mailata did. Lane Johnson. I mean, you got a great group of the front line now. Will they have to start building depth in this draft? Probably. But I also think, again, another receiver that if they could pick one receiver, right, that will work with Devontae and be the number 2, and then you work on the middle linebacking crew, and you got a defensive end that can make it, that's quick and can get sacks, I think they're in a good shape.
Oh, certainly. I mean, you just kind of ran through all their positions of need, and they've got 10 draft picks and 3 in the first round.
Yep.
Mitch, let me ask you, how often do you hear of a playoff team?
No.
A team that advances to the playoffs,
right,
and has 3 first-round picks.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, they're in such a fine position. Again, so many NFL fans and specifically Eagles fans can be impatient with the quarterback position and the direction of the franchise, and some of that is understandable considering where the team has regressed, after the Super Bowl. But they're back on track, and not only that, they've got these 3 first-round picks to play around with. Let's see if they use them all. If they get even more first-round picks for future years, that they could use it as trade assets. So,
exactly.
Certainly, we'll see.
One last question. So the name of the show is The Burn with Mitch. The burn mean what really burns you, what bugs you. It could be in football, it could be in any sports, it could be in life. Josh Tolentino, what is your burn?
Oh, certainly. Oh man, that's a lot of burns, maybe, but oh man, on the spot, huh?
Yes.
I think one most recent one is just looking back to yesterday, the Vikings, and it's an unfortunate situation on Martin Luther King Day, but the Vikings interviewed Catherine Raish, who is one of the lead executives in the Eagles front office.
Mm-hmm.
The Vikings obviously have open positions for their head coach and GM spots. So they announced that they had interviewed Catherine Raish. She's the first female candidate in the history of the NFL to be interviewed for a GM position for that high of a position.
Mm-hmm.
She hasn't gotten the job yet. It was just announced that she had an interview. Again, history. We're talking about history.
Mm-hmm.
First female ever, and just the replies to that tweet, that announcement, that story were just ridiculous. I guess for where we are right now as a society, and I think it's just again something that needs to change, and obviously it shows that we have a long way to go for an overqualified candidate.
Really. Okay, that's good to hear. I didn't read the tweets. I didn't see them, but it's typical. I brought that up. At the beginning of the show, I did a shout out to Maybelle Blair. Maybelle is a 95-year-old woman who played in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, and she's still up and about. She turned 95 this past week, and I gave her a shout out. And yet there are so many, mostly, I think, 99.9% men, when they troll the women on Twitter, and there's the women who are smart and who know sports, and they continue to troll them and be nasty. It's just inappropriate, and we got to get over that.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Again, Catherine Raish, in her 30s, but certainly overqualified, for that type of position. And we're talking about league history here. The first female candidate ever to have an interview for a general manager position. And you brought up Mailata earlier, Mitch.
Mm-hmm.
She is the person who found Jordan Mailata.
Is that right?
He was credited. Yes, her and Brandon Brooks were credited with that. And obviously he's been such a gem for the Eagles. It's only his 3rd year playing football, but we saw how dominant he was this season. And I think he's got a couple all-pro seasons ahead of him. So
absolutely.
That's my burn there with Catherine Raish.
Well, that's a good one. I appreciate it, Josh. Listen, thanks for coming on. It was great. Really, your knowledge is amazing. You follow the Eagles. I'm sure you love what you do, and good for you. And we'll keep watching for more information in the offseason with the Eagles, and we'll see who ends up being the big winner at the big game in February.
Mitch, certainly appreciate the opportunity. Always happy to hop on. Looking forward to an off-season full of coverage. Appreciate the opportunity, man.
All right, thanks. Have a great night, Josh. Take care. Thank you again. All right, that was Josh. Some good words, good specific information about the Eagles. Now we're going to go from Eagles. We're going to go NFL total. My buddy Lou, hopefully he was coming on. Come on, Lou. I'm ready, buddy. Where are you? I want to see your pretty face on that screen next to me. I need to talk to you. We got 20 minutes because again, Harold's been patiently waiting for his time to talk some baseball. So, Captain Lou, I am ready for you. Let's do it. talking football, NFL playoffs. I'm going to review real quickly. Hey, there he is. There we go. We got him. Ladies and gentlemen, Real Captain Lou, 12-ounce sports, follows me tonight. Hello there, my friend.
Mitch, it's great to be on your show, man. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, I'm glad you could do it. I appreciate you coming on.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
All right, let's get to it. I have one surprise of a player who played really, really well this past weekend. Who do you think that might be?
Oh, boy. I'd have to say Sony Michel.
No, that wasn't mine.
I don't know. You'll have to tell me.
Quarterback.
Not Jimmy Garoppolo.
No, not Garoppolo. Starts with a J.
Oh, gosh. Well, it can't be Jalen Hurts.
No, Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. Oh, I'm not surprised. I loved how he played. Wow. Boy, did they look good Saturday, huh?
Didn't they? I mean, listen, I don't have a team. I don't think you have a team that you're holding on to in these playoffs, but I love an underdog and a team that hasn't been there yet. And for a long time, haven't won. I'm hoping the Bills do something.
I do too. I like the Bills and I like Cincinnati. I like that story. I really like Joe Burrow. I like what they're doing there. It's funny, Mitch, is, at draft day, they were all complaining that they should have took Penei Sewell, who the Lions got, and they got, Jamar Chase, and holy cow, that guy has got to be offensive rookie of the year. And they got some pieces there in Cincinnati too. I'll tell you what, Mitch, that Bills Kansas City game Sunday night is going to be awesome.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. So let's go through this real quick. Yeah. Cincinnati 26-19 over Vegas. Kind of figured that Vegas, they played out the string. It was interesting to watch them, but they really didn't play well on the weekend. Buffalo, just perfection. 47-17 over the Patriots. The Bucs trampled the Eagles, which we thought would happen.
Yeah.
The Niners really snuck it out over the Cowgirls. Oh my gosh, that game. I ranted on that a little bit earlier, but and then Kansas City. I didn't think the Steelers had it in them, and they didn't.
Oh.
So now, this is going to be a fun weekend. Let's talk about Cincinnati, Tennessee. Who do you think's coming out on top on that one?
Boy, I'm a little worried about Cincinnati's defensive line. They got a lot of injuries there. And, Derrick Henry's coming back, Mitch. And
he is coming back. Okay.
Everybody wonders, is the week off going to hurt Tennessee? I don't know. That's going to be a great game. The only way I'm touching that game, Mitch, is I'm doing a teaser bet on it because it could go either way. I looked at it this afternoon before I came on. I think I'm taking Tennessee plus. I can get it up to plus 7.5 in a parlay. So I really go that route. Well, yeah, if you do it like that, your odds aren't that great. But
okay,
I like what Cincinnati's doing. I'm a little worried about their offensive or their defensive line. And Tennessee, they're at home. It's funny is Cincinnati hasn't won a divisional round game since 1988. My goodness, I'm going to go with Tennessee at home on this one in a close.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's fair. they are the higher seed. That makes sense. I don't know how San Francisco is going to fare at Green Bay, even with Green Bay taking a week off. We'll be.
You know what, Mitch? Everybody says this could be the worst matchup for Green Bay, but I got to tell you, again, everybody's got injuries, so I'm not going to use that as an excuse. But Bosa may not play. Warner might not play. And Green Bay, to me, is the best team by far. As much as I am not a Packers fan, you know that. They're the arch enemy for us. They're the New England Patriots. They're your Tom Brady. That's me with Green Bay.
Yeah.
But that being said, I like Green Bay, what they do. I think they've gotten better. And they've got a chip on their shoulder. They've got knocked out at home by Tampa. They've been the top dog only to get knocked off. I just think this is a different year. And I think San Francisco will keep it close till about halftime, but I can see Green Bay winning that one by 10 points.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think it's going to end up being a rout. Yeah, will it take, I think, Green Bay a little while to get going? Yeah, probably. I just don't see, especially the way that the Niners played against the Cowboys. I mean, listen, they really screwed it up in the second half, but the
Oh,
Cowboys screwed it up even worse. How can you? Did you hear Mike McCarthy explain that running play?
I, I don't get it. I heard it and I don't believe it. I mean, I believe him saying that because he believes it.
Yeah,
But you watch that, Mitch, and a lot of that's on Dak too. I mean, he's got to keep an awareness of the clock. They know the rules where the umpire has to touch the ball. I have obviously I have no I don't feel sorry for him at all. But when you got 14 penalties and they run that fake punt and they don't know what the heck they're doing afterwards and they get a delay of game on themselves. But San Francisco, if they pull some of that stuff like they did against Dallas, you're right, they're gonna get blown up. But
yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, I did too. It was just yeah, you it's your basic. I think Dallas has a history of doing this in the playoffs. They become all of a sudden they become listen, how many games did they win this year, right? 12?
Yeah. Well,
Or
with all due
13?
respect to your division,
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
one of the weakest ones,
Oh, sure.
and I mean, yeah, they went 6-0. Okay. They lost to Arizona, they lost to LA, they lost to the Raiders. I mean, they lost to the good teams. And they're kind of saddled with that quarterback. And with Dak at $40 million, they got to pay some guys. I think Zeke's gone. It's
Yeah.
underachieving.
I think they're the second. They're ranked 2 in league. I think they're over the cap already. They might be over the cap or something. I read that the other day. I'm thinking this team, and Zeke came out when he first came out. You're thinking, oh my gosh, look at this guy. He's who was the guy? Norm Bulash, but better and more athletic. Bowling ball. He's a big guy, but he's taller and he's got more skills, right? The human bowling ball, remember? But Zeke's got more skill laterally. What has he done lately, though?
Boy, nothing. I think the injuries have caught up to him, Mitch, and I think they're just the wear and tear's got to him. I think he digressed at the end of last year, and again, I think that they're going to let him go. He might latch on with another team, but they got Tony Pollard there to take up the slack, and running backs in the NFL now, Mitch, I think are a dime a dozen. I really do. I think you could get a decent one in the third round.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit did with DeAndre Swift. I mean, I look at and he's a playmaker, and I don't know, but it's fun to watch him implode. It's fun to watch that soap opera.
It is. Jerry Jones and his buddy Chris Christie, and and then oh my gosh, we got to do better. And then Mike McCarthy, that asinine comment. Oh my gosh, asinine comment. Well, the refs, they should have put the ball. No, dumbass. Why are you running the ball? Why are you running?
Don't talk to me about the refs in Dallas back in 2014. We put on that road. Just ask Dean Blandino. He blocked me on Twitter for getting in an argument about that game when they picked up the flag there on that big call. Oh, yeah. And that play will haunt me. Matthew Stafford had that game won, but we won't get into that. We'll move on.
Okay. I see your head getting a little red there, buddy.
That's right.
Okay. Let's move on. I love having you guys on. It's great. Rams and the Bucks.
Oh,
this should be fun also.
I know it's going to be Sunday is going to be just a phenomenal day for football. I mean, like I say, both the days are, but I personally am rooting for Matt Stafford to win a Super Bowl. He did everything for Detroit in 12 years. Tougher nails. I mean, the only playoff game I think that he didn't have he played great in 2011 against the Saints. I mean, they put 28 points up. What the heck do they want?
Yeah.
In Dallas, again, he played well enough to win. The Seattle game, I thought was, it could have went either way. But I love that he's getting this opportunity with some talent on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I love how LA's defense is playing, and I think Tampa Bay was fortunate to play a Philly team that just wasn't quite ready for prime time, if you will. I think Philadelphia reminds me of the Detroit Pistons of the mid '80s. They're learning. They're going step by step. And I listened to your last interview. Man, you guys are sitting in the catbird seat with 3 first-round draft picks. I think you got the future's looking good, but now they're playing LA. There's some guys that went to the Super Bowl that are still on the Rams. I got to tell you, Mitch, that's to me is a toss-up. I might go with LA in an upset in this one. I think I'm going to take the Rams. I really think they can make it to the championship game.
If they play, listen, I think the key to all this too still is getting to the quarterback. If you can and hit him hard, I mean, he did when he gets sacked. Eagles sack him 4 times. I mean, a couple of those were inconsequential, but you really have to put him on his butt and make him scared because he hasn't been scared a lot this season. But these guys aren't. Who's gonna sack him first? Are we gonna get Mr.
I say I'm going to go with Aaron Donald or the guy they got from Denver. And I think the other thing, Mitch, again going back to Matt Stafford, I think he's going to make a mistake in this game. He's due. He's bound. He does it. He's kind of like Brett Favre a little bit. Makes a couple of those throws. What are you thinking?
Yes.
But if he minimizes it to 1, and they don't have to count on him like last night. I mean, he only threw the ball 17 times. I think they can win. So if they can overcome that, the defense, like you said, get some heat on Brady, I honestly think they got a really good shot at winning.
I do too, and I hope they do. And like we talked about at the beginning, this is going to be. I mean, this has the opportunity. Again, we always look at. It's so funny sometimes, especially in baseball. You get 2 great starters going at it, and for some reason, it ends up being a blowout. Both starters don't have it, right?
Yep.
Football, I think, is a little different because it's so systematic, led by one person, and those persons are playing well. Have you been surprised at how Kansas City, they weren't looking really great middle of the season, but are they the Kansas City that we thought we would see?
Boy, I think what impresses me, Mitch, and I know again they played a Pittsburgh team that. Yeah, I mean, they were on their last legs as far as a Big Ben. But in the last few weeks, I think their defense has really started to step it up a little bit. That's what I like. And they were 3-4, and they kind of had a come to Jesus meeting, and they realized what their strengths were, and they started getting, Tyreek Hill more involved. And, the running, throwing out of the back, throwing to the backfield a little bit more. Clyde Edwards-Helaire may not play, but I like what they're doing, and this is going to be again. It's a toss-up. I'm a little worried about the one-dimensionals being a little one-dimensional, being the Bills, but their running game kind of scares me a little bit. But wow, they just as impressive as they look, they got another crack at Kansas City. Well, again, it's a coin flip on that one. It wouldn't surprise me either way. I won't waffle. I'll make a pick for you. I'm going to stick with Kansas City. I really do. I took them in Green Bay to go to the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. I'm sticking with them.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with them, and I'm going to go Kansas City, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, again, you look at these matchups. It's like, oh my God, I can't wait to watch these games. It's going to be so much fun. Yes, I was going to ask you. So that's your Super Bowl prediction. That was yours. Yeah. I just think, like we said, Green Bay is just head over heels better than the other 3 teams. So I was always thinking from the beginning, middle of the season, that the way they kept getting better and better, and Aaron Rodgers, as much as an asset he could be, he was football wise.
Yeah.
I mean, he's as good as Tom Brady, if not better.
Well, I think he's better myself right now. And I think
playing
so
well.
He makes the plays just that they're head scratchers, and just when you think you got him dead to rights, he bails out of it and throws, he just completes that pass. And they've got a 2-headed running attack now with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. I think, that's huge. And when you got Devontae Adams and, and you got a guy like Scantling who they can, and Lazard, the weapons they got, but Mitch, their defense, I think, has played a lot better than it has.
Okay.
And again, I think that they're going to neutralize San Francisco. And I mean, my heart would love to see San Francisco win, but I see Green Bay. Like I said, they're just so good.
They really are. And then the playoffs, these guys, down to the final 8, they're not crappy teams by any means.
No.
I just look at the 4 in the NFC, and I go, San Francisco, Tennessee, Cincinnati, Green Bay. Green Bay to me is really higher, on the higher level. Not so much in the AFC. So that's where the fun's going to come from.
Yeah.
Really
I agree. And that they're again, I think all the games could be good. I'm a little worried about Green Bay's game. It could be a blowout in the second half, but like I said, Green Bay or San Francisco's got their numbers, so maybe it'll keep them close. Who knows?
We'll see. It's gonna be. Listen, we both love watching this stuff. I mean, best time of the year.
100%.
Except, it would be better if we had the Major League Baseball Players Association and the owners.
Mitch, I'm worried.
It's a whole nother story for another show.
Oh yeah, you and I can talk for an hour just on that, eh?
God, my whole thing is, why is Manfred not just telling them to sit in their room without getting out? No one goes to the bathroom. No one gets any water until you make some decisions and get this shit done.
Mitch, I'll tell you, it's funny, is I'm on our negotiating team for our union. I'll keep this short. I've been a part of 4 of them. And, we sit in a room for 8 straight days, and we hammer it out. It may have to go back a couple times, but we hammer it out. These guys, neither one of them know the true meaning of negotiate. The players are so way off base. The owners are way off base on this. And we'll see when they start missing games and missing paychecks. That's the only way they're going to get together, maybe. But I don't see – I agree with you. I think it's going to be – we're going to get a late start, maybe a few weeks. But I think it's, but who cares? I mean,
it's so stupid. I mean, if you're going to make a decision in March 15th and get it done and then delay the season, why can't you do it now?
It's horrible.
I just don't understand it. Anyway,
your head's getting red now.
Yeah, it is. Last thing for you. So you get to get a burn. You get to give me a burn.
Well, I'll tell you what, the burn. I get it. My burn is Dak Prescott. Real quick.
Yeah.
He's making $40 million a year, and he's the $40 million excuse maker. What he said about throwing trash at the ref is unacceptable. I understand it's the heat of the moment. You're talking to a guy after a loss. He's a professional. He's been down that road before. I lost all respect for him after that. You don't do that. And he's got to grow up. And that's another coddled player that doesn't get his way. And grow up, and that's my burn right there.
I thank you, because you probably heard me say it, same thing. I was like, you're a professional athlete. You are the leader of your team, and you're telling the fans it's okay to throw stuff. If it wasn't us, no problem. I don't get it.
That's
all right. So my next guest after you, Lou. I don't know if you've seen this book. So
wow,
Harold is coming on in just a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It really now he might have to redo it and go to the Forgotten Six, because 3 of these guys got in.
Okay.
Minnie Minoso, Tony Oliva, and Gil Hodges. They got in. But we're still talking huge group of people in Philadelphia. Mark Carfagno, head of the group. I'm on an email list with him about all these stories that came out about Dick Allen and why he deserves. Dick Allen, Bill Freehan, Ken Boyer, Cardinals, Maury Wills, Jim Gilliam, not so much. And then Veda Pinson. If you want to read statistics and see what Harold has written, get this book. I mean, it's amazing.
Will.
Yeah, it really is good. So
sounds good.
We're gonna bring Harold on in just a second. Well, Lou, listen, thank you for your coming on. I appreciate it. Hey,
yeah, thank you.
I ended the show. I got some unbelievable guests coming on in the next couple of weeks. Oh my God, it's gonna blow me away. I'm getting blown away as we talk about it. But
man, I look forward to it. I always watch it before I come on. They're great. I love listening. Love it.
Thank you, buddy.
You bet.
All right, Lou, real Captain Lou is coming up next at 8 o'clock, exactly 30 minutes from now. Lou, what do you got going on your show tonight?
I've got my tag team partner that I do the hockey broadcast for Aquinas College, Mark Van Vliet. He's an old he played college hockey back in the 70s. He's got great stories about being an emergency call-up goalie in the old IHL days. And then I got our janitor on, Jeff Beck, at 9 o'clock. We're going to talk football, and I'm going to put him on the spot about one Baker Mayfield. That's coming up at 9. So we got a great show, 8 till 10.
All right, great. All right, folks, after I'm done, Lou's back on. Lou, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, you bet.
Take care. All right, and without further ado, Harold, my most dedicated fan has been holding on here for like since 6 o'clock. Harold Plouffe is author of The Forgotten Nine, which may now be 6 because 3 of these guys got in. Harold, thank you for hanging in. How's everything going?
Oh, fine. I've enjoyed the show so far.
Thank you very much. So let's get to this. Lots to talk about. Should we? I'm hoping that we can just leave out Minnie and Tony and Gil because they got in, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Do we hit the big guy first? To me, the big guy, Dick Allen, because it really is a sad story that he is not in. He should be in. In your book, you note all sorts of statistics, and you take 10 years of each player, right? And you go through, and you got all these numbers. Why isn't Dick Allen in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know.
Good answer.
It kind of blows your mind, you know. One of the things that's strange is when they went to this new format, he wasn't even on it in the first election when they went to this new format after the Hall of Famers and the scribes and all did theirs. And he wasn't even on. And then the first time he comes on, he only misses by 1 vote, you know. So how do you keep a guy off that's your top vote getter the next, as soon as he gets on, you know? Things like that baffle you. And then this year, the same thing happens. He's 1 vote short. and
Harold, how much, we talked a little bit before about the subjectivity of the Hall of Fame ballot. Maybe not, and we'll go with the regular Hall of Fame, and then you talk about the Golden Era and whatever. Is there that much subjectivity? I know Mark Carfagno really was, and Mike Schmidt was talking on behalf of Dick Allen and on this committee. Is it a lot of subjectivity that goes on in these meetings as opposed to the actual baseball writers voting for the regular Hall of Famers?
Oh, yeah. With the Mike Schmidt thing, he kind of disappointed me because when they had it with the Hall of Famers voting and scribes and that, when they had those combined before they went to this format, he didn't even turn in a ballot, and it was at that time discussed that Dick Allen was on it at that time, you know. And I think if he'd kind of went out at the beginning there, it would have reinforced a little bit of what he's saying now.
Interesting. Okay, that's too bad. Let's go to. I was most intrigued with the numbers of Veda Pinson, and I know that you mentioned Veda's son, right? Who's on Facebook. I would have loved to have gotten him on with you here, but I'm going to try again at some point. People, if you haven't looked at Veda Pinson's statistics and learned about him, you got to get this book because it's so thorough and it's amazing when you compare. And I want to have you talk about that in comparison to others that he's not in the Hall of Fame. He has 2,700 plus hits. To me, that's just, you know, you look at some of these guys now and it's like, okay, maybe not even close to 2,500. So tell me about Veda Pinson.
Well, Veda Pinson is probably the most underrated player of this era. I mean, there's not much doubt about that, you know, as far as being underrated. He was kind of in the shadow of Willie Mays and Hank Aaron and others, you know. A couple times he wasn't on the All-Star team, but people don't realize that in the year of 61 and 62, Hank Aaron also went to center field. And at that time, the voting was left fielders, center fielders, and right fielders. It wasn't a combination of the outfielders.
Okay.
And then, so he was up directly with Mays and Aaron in that aspect,
Okay.
of competing. Plus, he had Frank Robinson of his own team that he was being compared to all the time. And those three players, Aaron, Mays, and Frank Robinson, was the only three players more productive than him in his first years in the majors.
Right.
So,
But then he had, but again, if you look at the career of Veda Pinson, right? And you took, and he didn't play really, he didn't, comparatively speaking, he didn't play that long, but he did have the numbers, right?
who was that? I'm sorry.
Veda Pinson, yeah.
Oh yeah, he had the numbers. He had that. All of these players that we're talking about here had like about a 9-year prime peak,
Right.
And then most of them faded out. But Pinson went on, and a lot of people said, "Well, he fell off the cliff." I mean, his statistics in comparison to what he was so great. It seemed like he did. And then you got to consider the era that they were playing in,
And that's another point of that you make in the book. There's so many differences, and we talked earlier about, is there any way to make it objective to get into the Hall of Fame? It used to be, we were growing up, it was 3,000 strikeouts, 300 wins, 500 home runs. In the 60s, that's what it was. In the 70s, that's what it was. And 3,000 hits, right? Was Veda stuck in that situation where, man, he didn't get 3,000, he had 2,700 and whatever? It's kind of unfair because now, again, two different eras, two different, probably some of the same writers. They're probably 80 years old, right? What are they looking at in terms of, qualifications to get in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. Yeah, it used to be like 300 wins, and that now players are getting in with barely over 200, as far as pitchers and that, and hitters, but I don't understand it myself. You're right, but I think one thing about the 50s and 60s that people don't really realize is what the era was. You know that going into the 50s, we had the Negroes leagues coming in and the Latin leagues coming in. So basically, people don't realize that you had three major leagues that were combining together, and the talent and the competition was more than it had ever been before, certainly.
Right. Yeah.
And it hasn't been that competitive since because of the expansion over the years. So people don't consider what the talent was. You had the best of three leagues combined,
Yeah, I'm looking at, I mean, you go through year by year with these players in the book here. And I'm going through, and you talk about as a rookie in 59, he scored 131 runs, fifth best player in the National League. He wasn't considered a rookie, he said, but that would be by modern standards. 61, he hit 343 with 16 homers. And the MVP award went to Frank, but could have easily gone to Veda Pinson. And you say here, he never matched the numbers of 59 and 61 for much of his career, was regarded as a disappointment. Two things that contributed. He had his first great year in 59 when he was 21. He was 23. So, okay, 2 years. Second, the pitchers took control of the game in 63. Right.
In 63 may have actually been his best year, considering what happened,
Right.
What happened in 63 is the strike zone was expanded.
Right.
And that lasted for 6 years. So those batters in that era in 63 were under conditions that no other hitters have been in the history of baseball.
It's really amazing. In 63, he led the majors with 204 hits and 14 triples. Seventh in batting in National League, 313. Fourth in RBIs, 106. Fifth in slugging. Third to Aaron and Mays in total bases, 335. Stolen bases, he had 27. Second in doubles, top 10 in runs scored. Fifth in OPS. And again, that was in 1 year. But if you continue to read this, you're telling me that it's amazing how well he played. And it is a shame, again, looking at the statistics, that he isn't in, and I guess he'll never get in now, right? Is that a thing? He'll never get in?
Well, unless they put him on the ballot, I don't understand why he hasn't been on, because, as I mentioned in the book, when they had the voting on the other procedure before they went to this new format,
Right.
he outpolled like Allen and Minoso and 5 or 6 that have been on the ballot, and yet he can't get on the ballot. It just doesn't make any sense. But his stats are so far over and above, if you want to take career stats. But I broke it down even to where they were. I brought his totals down to their amount of games in that, and he still stands out.
Well, and here it is. Here's what I want to look at. Major league leaders, 1959 to 65. Okay, in American National League combined, runs scored, he's third behind Mays and Aaron. Hits, he's first. Doubles, first. Triples, first. Who's behind him? Aaron, Clemente, Mays, Frank Robinson, Aaron, Mays, Clemente, Johnny Callison. Home runs, he was not a home run hitter, right? So he didn't come in there. Stolen bases, he was third, 158. Extra base hits, fourth behind Mays, Aaron, and Frank Robinson. Total bases, he's third behind Aaron and run production, he's fourth behind Mays, Aaron, and Frank Robinson. And in runs plus RBIs, he's fourth behind Mays, Aaron, and Frank Robinson. Now that's just 6 years. But
yeah, you can carry that on to 9 years, which was his peak.
Yeah, so that's it's amazing, and I really want to talk to Veda about his dad and what he's been trying to do.
Oh yeah, he'd be glad to get on the show, I'm sure.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to and you talk a very short chapter on Jim Gilliam, right? Really not one of those players. He was good.
No, he's not going to. No. He
But
was a great player in his own right, but he's not.
He's not going to do it. Right, exactly. Maury Wills.
Wills, in my opinion, there's about 4 people ahead of him yet from that,
Right.
And he had that great year, and he set the record in stolen bases and that. But.
Right. But again, I mean, you do talk about here. Let's see. I picked the page. In 71, he had a decent year. Second on the team, stolen bases. Second to Willie Davis in hits, while batting .281. And in 39 and 72, he hung up as cleats. Games. He did. Listen, you forget these. You don't even realize these numbers. He had 2,134 hits. I mean, that's a lot of hits. I'm looking at other ones here that would make sense. Stolen bases, obviously 586, but just not quite offensively and defensively, not quite enough to get him over that hump, right?
No, and not to go back to Pinson for just a second is what people don't realize is how great an outfielder he was defensively. Also, he was really known to be a great defensive outfielder. And then even after his prime, he was over average.
Right.
Even in the American League, he was over average.
Yeah, and it's people like you and Veda the third, and like with Dick Allen. It's a matter of telling people. You have to now tell people about how good these guys really were. And look at who's in ahead of them, and look, he's ahead of these guys, Mays, right, in some areas,
Yeah.
and he's behind them, but not very far behind. So to me, and I didn't know this, Dick Allen and Veda Pinson, to me, should be in the Hall of Fame, based on what I've and continue to read.
Well, Allen was, he had such a high production thing. What hurt him sometimes in the seasons, in that he'd have injuries in that, so
Right.
that his totals didn't really show how great he really was, because he didn't have that total season.
And and we've heard with the racial issues, with his quote attitude, that some people just didn't like that and they don't vote for him. But you hear other people who were behind the scenes, not necessarily sports writers, but people who knew Dick Allen. He wasn't that way. He was a very, very kind soul. But all you hear are the negative things that he talked to the sports writers about, because the sports writers continue to trash him and beat on him because of his issues that he's had with race and how he dealt with it. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I've heard later, though, now there's a lot of contradiction to that. Like you said, that, if you talk to the players he was with in that,
Right.
great respect for him, and there wasn't that problem,
Exactly. So again, you're talking about the writers voting, and I think this is probably what has kept him off the ballot. Bill Freehan is we got two more to go. Bill Freehan and Ken Boyer. Let's talk about Freehan. Just terrific catcher for the for the Tigers.
Yeah, he was, and especially defensive catcher. He was renowned for being really a good defensive catcher. I don't know how much support he'll get from the committee in that, but he was a great catcher in that. But he has to compete. At the end of his career, is like Carter and Fisk, and then Simmons was there, and then Bench was still there. So it was that hurt him a little bit, And then before him was Berra and Campanella,
right?
But during his time in the '60s, early part of the '60s, he was right there with basically him and Torrey, maybe Crandall a little bit,
Right. And I just don't see him. I mean, I don't see him getting in. Great, like you said, I remember him as a really good defensive catcher, but not so much on the offensive side on the offense. Right. He wasn't. He was productive, but not real productive enough to get him over the hump. Numbers wise, if you're looking objectively at numbers, he doesn't have.
Right. Now, talking about Kenny Boyer, I think
yes.
To me, him and Santo was pretty much even. If you took their careers and you really looked at it, and that he's right there with Santo. Yeah.
And Kenny played. What did he play? Did he play 14 years? Is that what I read?
Yeah, from 56 to 87 or 67, 56, 67, something like that.
I love this. He signed a $6,000 contract in 19. See, and I told you this before. I had no idea he played in 1949. I mean, that was $1,000 under what it required him to be on the roster for the next 2 years as a pitcher. So then he went and once out of the service, he played 159 games for Houston, 319, 21 homers. And listen, back in the day then too, 116 RBIs is not chicken feed, right?
Oh, no.
That's pretty damn good.
Well, if you look it up, like through the 60s and that, you had players like Clemente and that only had 2 years of 100 or more RBIs. K-Line only had maybe 3 years, and that's another thing that was with Pinson. He had 4 years of 100 runs scored and a couple of years with 100 RBIs that some of these other players didn't even have.
Yeah.
And then for a 10-year period, he was more productive than Clemente. Of course, Clemente finished stronger, and then he had that tragic, accident.
Right. Let me ask you a question I forgot to ask before. Is it possible that Veda Pinson, because of where he played, was underrated? he didn't get the press. It wasn't a huge city.
Well, that too, and I think from what I see in the media after the '61 series, I think they were so disappointed. The Reds really, and Pinson had a bad series. There's no getting around that. He was like 2 for 20 or 2
I
for
think
9.
you're right. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they just kind of didn't back him. If you went to Pittsburgh, Clemente, he was being backed by the press. Naliva was being backed in Minnesota, and that, but the press in Cincinnati has never backed him. And then, of course, they went into the Big Red Machine after that.
Right.
And then everything became the Big Red Machine, and everything before that was pretty much. They didn't really back Robinson. Robinson really got his attention once he went to Baltimore.
Correct. Right.
Exactly. It could be because of the small market, But if you did, in those days, you didn't have ESPN and that. So if you sent your information had to go to New York, and then it came out of New York.
Okay.
So if you didn't send the information there, it didn't go.
Right. Exactly. And you have convinced me to get on. I've been on the Dick Allen train for a while, but I think you've convinced me to get on the Veda Pinson train. I mean, I want to try and get Veda on and to talk about his dad, because I think it's going to be a really good conversation. Because listen, who would know better, pretty much, than his own kid, right?
Oh yeah. That I think you should. You really should.
I mean, I'm going to go and read the chapter in more depth this week, but it's just amazing. Again, I didn't see. I remember the name. I'm sure I watched him play many games on TV in the early '60s. But man, and I'm going to look at that. And I'm taking this right now. I'm going to go look at Kenny Boyer's stats real quick. So 20. Let's see, at-bats, hits. 2,143 hits, 318 doubles, 282 homers. 1,100 RBIs, 41 walks, singles, at bats, plus on base. He had some good statistics too. He really did. It's just amazing to watch him. And then here you compare him to Hack. I guess this is comparing to Hack Wilson. Is that what this is here?
Stan Hack. Yeah.
Oh, Stan Hack. I'm sorry, Stan Hack.
I had him up.
Okay, Stan Hack. Yeah, Stan Hack. I'm sorry. Gotcha.
Evans and Beto and them.
Yes. So I've got a few minutes left. Your thoughts generally on the Hall of Fame voting? Do the Baseball Writers of America need to? Do we need to make a change in how the vote is taken, or how our players are evaluated? Do we go back to so now you're never going to have a pitcher win 300 games, pretty much. So do you automatically lower that? Does somebody figure out some kind of algorithm and say, okay, 250 is now the number, and instead of 500 homers because players aren't playing as long, is it like 400? Do we do that, and that makes it simple and easy? Because your pitchers are never going to get very rarely now, the 3,000 strikeouts, those kinds of 300 wins. It's not going to happen. I would love to see it become more objective, to be honest with you.
I don't think you can just put permanent standard. I don't think you can really do that. I mean, you can have standards that make it pretty much, but then you had people like Koufax. He never got to 200 wins, but he deserves it. So you can't really say if they hit automatically hit this, that they go in and that. Or they have to hit this or anything. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't say that they have to hit this or whatever.
Right. And again, with the regular Hall of Fame, it's just voting. It's individual votes. You check in a box. With the other Golden Era committee and the other committee, it's okay. We'll take the numbers, but here, give me your speech for Dick Allen or for Veda Pinson. And it's just so subjective. We don't know what goes on in those meetings, so it's interesting.
Oh no. And it kind of bugs me too that, a few years back they had those writers that turned in blank ballots that would actually cancel out 3 other voters. It wasn't that they didn't turn them in. Some of them on like Reggie and Mike didn't turn them in on the other one. That's not bad. They didn't turn it in. It didn't affect anything that much. But when people turn in a blank ballot,
that counts as a
that
ballot.
eliminates, that cancels out 3 other votes. And that cost Jim Bunning probably the election from the writers. Where he had to go into the veteran, and that kind of stuff bothers me. And also, it's been noted that writers have said they actually vote for someone that they know won't go in. That's actually canceling out votes that way instead of just turning in a blank one.
Yeah,
And those type of writers and that shouldn't be able to vote. They shouldn't be allowed. If they don't think anyone belongs in there and that, that's fine, but not to cancel out someone else's.
Right. I mentioned I may have mentioned to you, Jason Stark hopefully coming on, not next week. It's when the announcement comes out next week, Tuesday. So that'll be fun to talk about. But the week after, hopefully I can get him on and talk about the Hall of Fame voting and what can we do is there any way to change it? Is it too subjective? Do we need to put numbers on it to make it more objective? I don't know. We don't know. We don't have the answers. I don't think anybody does, right?
Yeah.
All right, folks.
But
one more. Go ahead, Harold.
Okay. Just a personal opinion of who I think from this era maybe should belong. I think Dick Allen, of course, and Veda Pinson and Kenny Boyer. Those 3 and maybe Louis Tiant from the pitching part.
Yeah.
I think the 50s is pretty well cleaned out.
Yes.
With Minoso and Hodges going in,
Mm-hmm.
But those 3 players definitely, I believe, belong in the Hall of Fame. And then probably Tiant maybe as a pitcher.
Yeah, that would be.
But it's going to be 5 more years,
Right.
And maybe they think they put in so many this time that they're going to put a little brakes on for the other. I hope not.
You hope not. Yeah.
But then they hadn't put any in but Santo for the 21 years before that. So these 4 are only made up like 1 every 5 years from that previous.
Yeah. We will see what happens, right? All right. Give me your burn. I need your burn.
Oh, okay. Well, I think what really bothers me is people who give opinions on what they've heard from somebody else without really going in and finding out if it's truth or fact. That could be with baseball, that could be with politics, religion, or that could be with your neighbor. If you hear something and you don't follow up and actually try to find out what the facts are and just take something for truth on something that you're not even, knowing
educated on, right? Yeah. No, that's great.
I
love that.
That bothers me.
That's great. Folks, get this book. If you're a baseball fan, whether you're from the 50s, 60s, 70s, or whatever, a lot of real good information. If you like numbers, Harold has done a really amazing job with the numbers that you'll look at with this book. A lot of statistics backing up, like he said, like he just talked about. He did a lot of research. Thank you, sir. It was awesome having you on.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure.
All right, Harold.
Really,
you have a good night. Enjoy your weather in Arizona. All right.
Okay.
And we'll talk to you at some point soon. Again.
Okay, I thank that. Take care,
well.
Mitch. Thank you.
Take care. You're welcome. All right, folks, that's it for me. Thank you to Josh Tolentino talking Eagles, to the real Captain Lou for talking NFL playoffs, and for Harold just now talking about the people who should be in the Hall of Fame with his book. Next week on The Burn with Mitch I have here I go. Brendan Deeg talking Eagles and NFL playoffs. John McLaren, former MLB coach, many teams as a coach, and Jake Ellenbogen talking Rams. Folks, thank you very much. This has been The Burn with Mitch on 12 on Sports. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Go listen to Captain Lou. Take care. Bye-bye.